Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I think we can get started now. My name is Caitlin Edwards, and I'm the Community Events Manager here at Linux Professional Institute. Thanks for joining us today at our LPIC-1 Review Webinar. For those of you new to Linux Professional Institute, our mission is to promote the use of open source by supporting the people who work within it. LPI is the global certification standard and career support organization for open source professionals. With more than 200,000 certification holders, we are the world's first and largest vendor-neutral Linux and open source certification body. We have certified professionals in over 180 countries, deliver exams in multiple languages, and have hundreds of training partners. Participating in today's webinar, we will learn more about the importance of the exam objectives, this exam's overall structure, and why obtaining your certification is professionally beneficial. During the webinar, we are encouraging questions, so feel free to submit your questions using the Q&A or the chat box at the bottom of the screen, and I will facilitate and track throughout the webinar. This webinar will be recorded, and later this week I'll send out the recording link along with the presentation slides. We will also be linking up the recording to our YouTube site. This webinar will be led by Kenny Armstrong, a training advisor here at LPI. Kenny has been involved in Unix and Unix-like operating system for 2 decades now, starting with his usage of a modified Sensolare platform when he was in the military. Since then, Kenny has worked with Linux in a variety of environments, from internet service providers to government institutions, private companies, and large university installations. Kenny has been a proponent in open source software ever since he first learned of its existence. Kenny, I will pass the mic over to you, so why don't you take it away?
Okay, great. Thank you, Caitlin. Yes, hello, everybody. I saw Caitlin posted in the chat that we have such a great global representation here. Thank you to everybody from Brazil and Germany, but I also saw that we have somebody from Angola and Albania, and I'm pretty excited to see some African as well as a little bit further east there in Europe. My name is Kenny Armstrong. As Caitlin said, I've been working with Linux for quite some time. I joined LPI a little over a year ago after coming over from a training organization that some of you may have heard of. So what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and get started here with what you need to know in order to get prepared for the LPIC-1 certification. We're just going to go over the agenda real quick. So we're going to basically discuss what the Linux Professional Institute is and how you can benefit from being certified through this organization. Some of the certifications that we offer, how best to prepare for an LPI exam, what you can expect during an LPI exam, and what happens after you finish your exam as far as getting your results are concerned and things of that nature. So disclaimer, everything I'm telling you is basically my opinion and things that have worked for me and that I've seen work for others. So they don't exactly, they're not LPI. This is just that are suggestions that I make. And basically what it boils down to, LPI test your knowledge and how you actually apply that knowledge. There is no real concern as to how you use that knowledge. They don't expect you to go out and pay for expensive training, buy expensive books, go to expensive classes or anything like that. If you want to do that, that's fine. That's completely on you. But we're just basically looking for the outcome of what you have gained from your training and your experiences and your practicing. And again, you can use your own judgment how to prepare. So whatever works best for you is okay with us. We're just looking for the outcome of what you have learned. So what is Linux Professional Institute and how can you benefit from getting certified through this organization? So as Caitlin had said, the Linux Professional Institute promotes the use of open source software by elevating the people who work with it. So of course, we condone the usage of open source software, but we're also about more than just that. We're about the global outreach that comes with open source software, the different communities that it spawns, and how others work together to promote it and find new ways of implementing it to help just enrich people's lives and make their jobs easier, make their situation better for them. Whatever open source can do, we really look forward to the positive benefits of it. LPI is a nonprofit organization that's based out of Canada. As Caitlin said, there are regional partners that provide local support for for assistance with training. They have their own trainers or offering exams, things of that nature. And we also have global partners as well. We are independent from other vendors and Linux distributions. And that's something I want to emphasize real quick, is that unlike when you go for, say, a Red Hat certification, like Red Hat Certified System Administrator or Red Hat Certified Engineer, you take Red Hat's courses and you get trained on how to use a Red Hat Enterprise. The certifications have changed in recent years to where it's less focused on Linux, more focused on the platform and products that Red Hat supplies. So we understand that, we respect that, but the stance is that we will understand how to work with the system as opposed to just specific package and software offerings that a particular vendor may provide. So we cover Red Hat materials. We do expect you to know how to install RPM files, work with Yum, work with DNF, SC Linux things. Oh, SC Linux comes in later certifications, but things of that nature. But we also expect you to understand how to work with Debian-based systems, OpenSUSE-based systems, how to compile software. So things of that nature. We're looking more broad spectrum when it comes to Linux distributions as opposed to just promoting and sticking as one particular branch. Just a quick chart showing some information about LPI. It started in 1999. We have over 100,000 LPI professionals worldwide. The exam is offered in 9 separate languages at this point in time. We are represented within 193 countries and territories. And there's been, as you can see by the numbers there, there's been quite a few total numbers of exams that have been delivered and taken by people. This just basically shows you where we have somebody who is certified in a LPI certification. Everything that's in gold is where we have at least one person there that's certified. And we're working to increase those numbers and help people learn more about us. So let's quickly talk about the benefits of an LPI certification. So again, like I said, it encompasses numerous qualifications and skills. So we're looking for everybody that's from a basic Linux user with some understanding of open source software licensing, how to use a Linux desktop, how some assistive technologies can be used, all the way up to the range of being able to deploy large enterprise scale environments that can work across a variety of platforms in order to, say, for instance, get a Linux directory system to communicate with a Microsoft Active Directory environment, being able to use print services from other vendors and have those incorporated within a Linux system, using different types of network services such as network time protocol, the various types of web services that are out there, including the newer technologies such as containerization and some of the older ones such as virtualization. It just affirms that all of our professionals that are certified are competent within their particular fields with regard to the specific level of certification that they have gone up to. And it also shows that LPI certified professionals are continuing to learn more, that they're constantly trying to improve themselves with their skill set, which of course benefits the open source ecosystem as a whole. It represents a common standard with content and quality. So we focus on a particular style of exam delivery, and we make sure that the exam questions and everything are rigorously tested and approved before those to get delivered to you, the exam candidates. Now, it is not a comprehensive professional qualification on its own, but it is unique in the fact that it does cover such a wide swath of the IT spectrum, especially with regards to open source software. And it is a distinguishing credential. There are organizations that actually seek LPI certified professionals in order to work within their systems. So an LPI certification is globally recognized and highly reputable. It's recognized by other certification vendors. One of them, we don't have it listed, but I will just go and say this. Microsoft actually approves of our certification when it comes to working with their Azure platform. So as you may be aware, cloud services are the huge to-do within the last few years. And one of them is the Microsoft Azure cloud platform. So they offer various types of operating systems, of course, Windows, but also Linux to run on their platform. And they do like to have LPI certified professionals handle the deployments and installations and maintenance of those particular instances. In some instances, an LPI certification is a prerequisite for other exams. Again, if you're going for an Azure certification, if you want to go for the higher level one, you need to at least have an LPI level certification in order to continue on. And there's even some other vendors that require it just before you can go to another certification vendor that they may provide support for. There are multiple options for study materials and training. We'll get into that in just a little bit. And again, there is no requirement to participate in any specific training courses, books, seminars, anything of that nature. Again, we test on what you know and how you apply that knowledge, not how you got to that point. So which exams certifications exist from the LPI?
Kenny, would
Yes,
you mind if we just paused and answered just a couple of questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so one person has that they have to renew their certifications this year, and now that there's no in-person meetings, how would they go about this? And are you just going to touch on this later in the presentation?
I will touch on a couple ways that can be handled here towards the end of the presentation. So yes, that question will be answered with different ways that you can approach that.
Okay, wonderful. The next one is, and this is kind of a general question. I hope that learning Linux certification is important for a network administrator, and that they're interested to major on network. So how would they go about that?
I highly recommend that. There are, if you're familiar with the company Cisco, they are basically the behemoth when it comes to networking on the internet, all the way down to selling home routers. Now, their earlier builds of their iOS, their operating system that they use, is extremely Linux-like. So if you know Linux, then you could feel comfortable at the command line for Cisco, but also Linux offers the same levels of networking utilities for DNS, network time protocol, uh, routing and firewalling, NAT, all that stuff. So if you understand how to do all that at a really good deep level within a Linux operating system that sits on a network, then you're going to be quite comfortable being able to translate that skill set to other vendors that handle networking, such as Juniper, WatchGuard, Cisco, and so on.
Okay, wonderful. And one last question before we move on. And I do understand that we will touch base on this throughout, but can LPI in general, can LPI help people get jobs in Canada?
Yes, that is something that is in the pipeline that we are working to make more formally known, and I'll discuss that here towards the end as well. Some ways that it can be helped seeking employment elsewhere, as well as.
Oh, okay. Your audio sometimes gets a little choppy, FYI. So I'm not sure.
Oh, apologies.
No, that's okay. But yeah, that is it for now. So go ahead.
Okay. All right. So here's a quick review of the different certification programs that LPI offers. Over here on the far, what we call our essentials course, well, not course, but our essentials track. These are standalone certificates. They're not professional level certifications that you can use to help show that you have an understanding of a particular type of technology. For instance, over on the top right, we have Linux Essentials, which is the basic Linux certificate that you can obtain. It's an hour-long test. There's I believe there's 60 questions on it or something, 45, something to that nature. It's a rather easier exam, but it basically shows introductory understanding of Linux and open source and the entire free software movement. We're also working on the IoT Essentials certification or certificate, the Web Essentials certificate, and in the pipeline is the security certificate, which is going to be coming out probably within a year or two, if I'm not mistaken. The middle group is the professional level certification. Now, this is what gets you, this is what helps you stand out on resumes and the membership program, which I'm going to go into that later as well. The first level certificate within this track is the LPIC-1, which is what we're going to be discussing here shortly. And to kind of help compare things for you, if you're familiar with the Red Hat track, the older style Red Hat Certified Technician and the newer version, the Red Hat Certified System Administrator, it's kind of comparable to that as far as that level of professional level. Now, again, the Red Hat exams focus only on Red Hat materials and their particular portfolio, whereas with LPIC-1, we cover Debian and all the other distributions as well. So that's just kind of help give you a comparison if you need one. LPIC-2 is our engineer track. Now, this is where not just your core system that you're working on, but you understand how to set up a Linux system on a networked environment with basic services such as web services, domain name services, email servers, and database services and things of that nature. So you're going beyond working with the basic system, getting it to communicate and provide services to other networked Linux nodes. And then beyond that, we have the LPIC-3 track, which has 3 separate certifications. You do not need to have all 3 of those certifications in order to be considered LPIC-3. For instance, to get to that level, you need to have an LPIC-1 and then an LPIC-2, and then just pick out whichever particular specialty that you like out of the LPIC-3 group there to get an LPIC-3 level certification. We do actually have some people that have gone through and passed all 3 of the LPIC-3 certifications, but again, you only need one of them to be considered an LPIC-3 Linux professional certified individual. Over in the far right, we have the open technology, where we discuss different types of tools that are used in the common Linux workspace, with DevOps, things that are covered such as Jenkins, working with Git, working with Vagrant and containerization, all kinds of tools in that regard. The BSD Associate, which is a certification that we took over from the BSD Foundation, and we now offer it for them. It's an updated and slightly improved certification for those that work with OpenBSD, FreeBSD, GhostBSD, and those types of distributions for the Berkeley Unix distributions. And then the BOSS Specialist, that one's on the plate. There may be some changes coming about that one, but that's more or less for those who understand the business aspects of open source technology. And again, this is just a quick chart showing you how the certification track works. We have Linux Essentials over here on the left. You are not required to have this certificate before you go to LPIC-1, but if you are brand new to Linux, then I recommend starting here before you move over to the LPIC-1 branch, because this will give you a good starting off point before you get into the slightly more advanced topics within the LPIC-1. If you want to go get the DevOps Tools Engineer certification, you don't have to go all the way through and get LPIC-2 to any of these others, but you do need to have at least an LPIC-1 or an equivalent level of knowledge with how to work with the Linux command line in order to get the DevOps Tool Engineer certification. So again, LPIC-1 is our level 1 professional level certification. As I said, it's basically you need to know your core Linux system. There are no prerequisites. Again, Linux Essentials is not a requirement before you sit for LPIC-1, but if you're brand new to Linux, it's kind of it's a good idea to at least understand what's on that level of exam before you go sit for LPIC-1 or before you start studying for LPIC-1. And the LPIC-1 contains 2 exams. It contains the 101 and the 102 exam. Now you need to pass both of those exams in order to get the LPIC-1 certification awarded to you. And we'll show the breakdown of those 2 certification exams here shortly. So how do you prepare for an LPI exam? For the LPIC series and the DevOps series, it's 90 minutes with 60 questions. So you have an hour and a half to get through 60 questions, and we'll show the breakdown of those here in a minute. If you go for an essentials level, it's just 60 minutes for 40 questions. All of the questions are either multiple choice with 4 or 5 given answers. And the question will actually tell you how many correct responses are expected of that question. So if you have a listing of, say, 5 responses and the question is asking for 3 of them, it will, or the question is expecting you to know the 3 correct ones. It will tell you that it's expecting 3 responses out of that 5. So you choose a correct answer unless the number, like I said, is explicitly requested within the question. So there are no tricks here. It tells you how many correct responses it is looking for. We also offer fill in the blank questions. These are free text input fields where you can provide a command or a parameter or a configuration option for a particular file, or a path to a specific file or a special directory or a file name, things like that. Now, my advice here is to make sure that you read that particular question. Some questions may say just give just a command line option. So don't actually fill out the full path of a command and then follow that up with the command line option. Just put just the command option in there itself. Same thing goes for if it's looking for a file name. If it's just wanting a file name and not the full path to the file name, just put just the file name. Don't do any more typing than you need to, and just make sure you read those questions carefully so that you get a good score on those types of questions. So again, with the LPI exam, it's all about passing. We're not looking for the next Linus Torvalds out of everybody. There is no final grade on the certification. And again, nobody knows everything. It's just impossible. Even again, going back to Linus, he himself said that he's a terrible system administrator. He's just a developer. But again, it shows that, you know, one of the core guys that started this whole movement, even he admits to not knowing everything. So we believe the same thing for everybody. Not everybody is a super duper Linux whiz that knows everything inside and out. It would just be impossible to test for that. But you should have at least a good general clue. You should have a good understanding of the basics, enough to get you going around the system and to help find the proper information. The scores on the exam, excuse me, they range from 200 to 800, where 500 is considered a pass on the exam. So as long as you get at least a 500 on any of the certification tests, then you pass that particular certification test. The number of correct answers required to pass varies with questions used on the exam because each item has its own difficulty. And again, that just basically means that some questions are going to be harder than others, so they're going to be weighed a little bit differently when the test itself gets scored by the system. The exam objectives, we lay these out for you, so you expect, this way we show you what we expect that you should know for the exam. It describes the content covered by an exam. We list some example commands, some files, some file names, some terms. But again, the examples are only a partial list. I'll show you those in just a second. So if we go to wiki.lpi.org or the main LPI site, we can see these particular objectives. So let's take a look real quick. So this is the LPI wiki, and anybody is free to go here. Just wiki.lpi.org. And over on the left-hand side, you're going to see the various certification objectives based on the exam that is being offered. So if we take a look at LPIC-1, version 5.0, which is our newest one, everything is broken down for objectives for exam 101. And further down, here's 102. So again, the LPIC-1 exam, you need to have, the certification, you're required to pass 2 separate exams, but we list out what you could expect to find on those individual exams. So for example, here for 102, you take a look at user interfaces and desktops. And we expect that you should know how to install and configure X11. And right here, weight of 2. So you can expect at least 2 questions on the 2 exam related to this individual topic right here as far as installing and configure X11. And right here, we have a quick breakdown of what we expect that you should know, such as understanding the X11 architecture, how it's actually put together on the system, knowing what the X window configuration file is, where you can find it, how is one generated, and how you can override specific portions of an XOR configuration file by creating your own drop-in files, so to speak. And a little bit further down, we have an awareness of Wayland. Now, Wayland is the new kid on the block when it comes to displays. Now, the X system is an actual server system. It's a client server application setup for rendering windows on your desktop. But the Wayland protocol is exactly that. It is a protocol. It's not a display server like X used to be, or X still is. So that's just something that you should know, that there is a slight difference between how those 2 technologies work. We're not going to go into the facets of configuring the individual components of Wayland Desktop. We just want you to understand that it is a protocol. It's laid out differently. It uses a different set of libraries as opposed to the X system. Now, to kind of help show you thing here, when it comes to particular areas, for instance, the install and configure X11, you need to understand 11 is a component actual desktop environment. For instance, if you use KDE on a Linux desktop, GNOME, XFCE, or any of these other technologies here, you need to understand that that's a separate layer that sits on top of the X. So that kind of gets in the weeds a little bit of just one particular area, but I wanted to share our many sections where a topic will overlay and often overlap a good deal with another topic. So this is something to be aware of when you study for the exams yourself. But again, without getting too far out into the weeds on these, you can take a look through here at any point in time to see if you understand, say, how to use the group add command, what the Etsy shadow file is used for. And for things like this, Etsy shadow, Etsy pass2bd, you should understand the default permissions for these particular files as well. So if you're not too familiar with how these files work, you can read up on the man pages for these, or look for some tutorials on the internet on how to work with these files and what commands modify these particular files as well. And I'll show you some examples of what you could do for that here in just a minute. So let's see here. There we go. Important when you're taking the exam. So double check that you study the most recent version of your exam's objectives. That is very important because you may run into a situation where, say you sat for a current version of LPIC 101, and then you haven't taken your second exam for a while because you wanted to study up on it. Make sure that when you go to sit for LPIC 2, there's going to be like a 6-month overlap between versions. So make sure that the second version that the second test that you go to sit for, make sure that you're taking the correct version that matches up with your previous one, or at least study the objectives for the new version if you're going to wait for a while longer before you take that second exam. Now, when it comes to doing some training, again, like I said earlier, we don't actually say that, here's the only trainers that we that you should work with in order to get this experience. These are the only classes that we approve of. We just test you on the knowledge that you have gained. But that being said, we have started providing our own learning materials to help those that are actually going to sit for the exams, to help give everybody a good kickstart. So these can be found at learning.lpi.org. And I will show you that. So here's the page itself. What we have here are individual books, for lack of a better term, that are broken down for each particular exam. So not just the certification, but the exam itself. So if you're going to study for Linux Essentials, you can click on the link for Linux Essentials. And we have all the topics broken down here. And then you could just drill down for the specific topic that you wish to learn more about. Now let's get a little bit more relevant and let's take a look at something from the 102 exam, which I have over here. And this is an individual lesson for a topic within the 102 exam with topic 107.1. And it tells you that it's for the newest version of the LPIC-1 certification, tells you what topic it applies to, the objective that it applies to, and if there's more than one lesson to this particular topic. So if some lessons run long, then we've broken them up into at least 2 lessons to help make it easier to digest the information that we're giving you. So these are really, really good. These are written by authors from the entire world over, from practically every continent, minus Antarctica. It's kind of hard to get penguins to write for us, but we do have authors from just about every part of the globe that have helped to create these lessons. These lessons have been proofread. They have been tested by other people to make sure that what we're putting out there matches the objectives of what we expect of people, and to make sure that they make sense for a student to understand and help them apply them not only to an exam type environment, but also how they can be useful for them in the real world. Now, that being said, again, these are our starting points. I'm not going to say that all you have to do is go read through all these lessons and practice with them. And then that's all you need to know to go sit for an LPIC-1. These are a good starting point. Nothing actually beats real practice of actually sitting down with the Linux system, trying different things out on your own, reading demand pages for different commands, and looking at different types of command line options and things of that nature to get a good understanding of them. So again, we are speaking of command line options. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, there has been a couple questions, and it is kind of difficult to get people's heads wrapped around, but they're asking how the lab sessions are handled.
How the lab sessions?
Yes. So just trying to give an understanding that there are no lab sessions specifically.
If they're referring to like lab sessions on an exam, is that what they're saying? Is that what they're getting at?
I was assuming they are more or less getting at lab sessions in the learning materials.
Oh, okay. All right. So let's take a look down here. For instance, at the end of each section, or at the end of each lesson of the learning materials, we have what are called guided exercises, which are that you could try out on your own that pertain directly to something that has been mentioned within the lesson itself. So these, that's why we call it, based on something you've been introduced to within the very you're reading. That we have what are called explorational exercises, which it's all stuff that you've out. Goal is to get you to learn more about a command by getting you to look into the info pages, the man pages, or into the help documentation for a particular software package or tool. And you use those to help get a better understanding of what you need to do in order to complete a particular objective within an explorational exercise. So with regards to these being labs, as they are, we recommend that you can set up either your own virtual box or some kind of virtualization instance, or if you have a subscription to a cloud service where you can get a Linux system up and running quickly, or if you're running Linux as your own system, you could practice these on your own with your own system as well, in order to get a better feel for what these particular commands can do and what the different ways that you can apply these to different types of scenarios. So on an exam environment, there are no live labs that you would go through. There's not like the Red Hat system where you're sitting in front of a computer with a broken VM or something of that nature, and you got to get it up and going and follow their list of what they expect you to do. Our exams are more like what you would see in a scholastic environment, where with the multiple choice and the fill in the blank, that's geared more towards getting you to think about what the question is asking, to pull on your deeper understanding of a particular Linux topic. So we're not looking for just like a robotic replay of something that you have learned, or like with muscle memory of a command. We're getting you to think about that we're getting you to think about those questions a little bit more with what they're trying to get you to answer. And within the lessons themselves, we also provide answers to guided exercises, as well as the explorational exercises. Now, with the explorational exercises, these are basically one way that you can complete those tasks. Now, with Linux, many of you may be aware there's more than one way to do something. So what you may see here for an answer to an explorational exercise may not exactly be a complete copy of what you did, but maybe you came to the same result. You just got there a different way. That's fine. That's okay. That's part of the reason why we have explorational exercises, for you to try different things out. It's just to help you understand your system at a much more deeper level. So let's take a look at some examples here. Let me show you something here. Let's see, let's get this pulled up. All right, so to kind of help give you an idea of what it is that we're looking for an LPIC-1 candidate. Let's say you need to know how to work with different types of files at the command line. You need to know how to use various commands that will let you read that information off of a file. So one common command that we use is the tail command, which will show you information from a plain text file. And we're just going to look at the last 4 lines of a particular file. In this case, the etc pass.tbd file. So here's the last 4 lines of this particular file. Everything's printed out for us. Now, the pass.tbd file holds the information for the user accounts on our system. So I'm not going to go into a whole lot of depth as to what these commands do. My intent is just to show you what we'd expect that you would already know when you sit for one of these exams. So we ran this command where we look at the last 4 lines of the etc pass.tbd file. Now, let's say that we don't want every bit of information I got spit out to us on our screen. So for this user here, which is basically it's a service account for an IPsec daemon, we don't need the password field or the user ID field or the group field. We just want to look at the first field, which is the username, the user home directory location, and which shell has been assigned to their account. Again, I'm not going to go into details of what these are. These are just expectations of what the exam expects you to already understand what these components are, such as a shell for a user, the location of a home directory, and things of that nature. So what we're going to do is we're going to run the same command again, but we're going to use a redirector operator, the pipe character, to send the output of our tail command as input to another command. And we're going to use the cut command, and we're going to specify a delimiter here of the colon, which if you notice between each one of these fields in the output, there's a colon that separates them. So we're telling the cut command that we only want the information that's between those field delimiters. And I only want certain fields. So I'm going to use -F, where I only want the username and the column which holds the home directory location, as well as the column that has the shell that's been assigned to that user. And let's press enter. And now that's all we see is just a slightly more cleaned up version of what was spit out before. Now, what I would like to do is I would like to take this information and modify it just a little bit. So instead of colons, I want to have semicolons there instead, because later on, I want to send this information to a comma separated file that we can use in another application. So I'm going to hit the up arrow key, which reads the last command that I've entered in my command history. And I'm going to pipe the output of this command, whoops, as input to another command, again, using the pipe redirection. Now, a very common utility that is used in order to modify textual output or data that is within a file is the sed command, which is short for stream editor. And I'm going to use sed's substitute capability, which is one of the more common functions that you can use out of sed. Now, when you sit for the LPIC-1 certification, just know that you can use sed for this and a few other basic tasks. Now, sed is there have been books that have been written on the sed command alone. Now, we're not going to expect a candidate to know every single command line option or every single type of functionality that comes with the sed command. We're looking for the most commonly used capabilities that a system administrator or an engineer would use with the sed command. Now, if you know more than the basics, then that's good. You're well on your way to being able to pass any topic that involves stream editing, any kind of textual information at the command line. So I'm going to tell sed to substitute, and that's what the little lowercase s is there for, all of the colon characters with a comma instead. And I'm just going to close this statement off here with a slash and then a single quote, and then press enter. So this partially worked for what I wanted to do. If we look at the output, the first colon was replaced with a comma, but I still have a colon here. So the sed command that we use only saw the first instance of the colon and changed that colon to a comma. Now, if we want this sed command to perform this operation to all output within any stream that gets sent to that command, then we need to specify that we want this done globally. That can be done with the G option here. And as we can see, all of the colons have been replaced by commas. So that's good. We're off to a good start here. We've got the last 4 lines in this etc passwd file. We have just the information that we want out of that file. Now, what else can we do with it? Well, something else I want to show you real quick is that within Linux, there's a really terrible saying that we have in America that says there's more than one way to skin a cat. And when it comes to modifying text at a command line with Linux, that really does hold true. So instead of just using the sed command to translate these colons over into commas, we can use another command. And this is one that you may not have seen before, but it's kind of a rarely used one, but you will find it in some older scripts that may be sitting around on some systems. So we would like for you to have at least a basic understanding of how to use this command. And that is the translate command, which is just the tr command. And what I'm going to do is, once again, I want to change all of these instances of a colon into a comma instead. So I'm using a set option here to where I change the first option to the second option. Now, I don't need to do anything else. I don't need to specify that this is going to be done globally or on specific instances within the file. The way that command is set up is going to do it for all input that gets sent to it. And there we go. Just like before with the sed command using the global option, I have the same type of output here using the translate command. When you're sitting down for an exam, just note that it may ask you for a specific type of command. So just be aware of like sed as a stream editor command and translates a different type of text operation command. So just pay attention to the question to see if whichever one is going to be the correct one. You just got to pay attention to that wording to make sure you pick out the correct command. All right, so we have this information that we want. we've replaced the comma, I'm sorry, that we've replaced the colons with these commas. And now I would like to be able to save this information into a CSV file that I could use later in another application. So once again, using our command history by just pressing the up arrow key within our bash shell, I'm going to use another redirection operator, except this time I'm going to use the standard output redirection, where I'm going to send the output of these previous commands I've been strung together into a file. And I'm going to specify the location of that file. And the last part is going to be the file name that is going to be created as a consequence of this command. And that's it. All right, so let's take a look at this file to see if we have what we wanted the command to give us. And there we go. So we can actually use this file in with another application. Now, what I would like to do is, I don't want to type this in at the command line every single time I want this action to take place. So what I would like to do instead is create a script file that will be used later on in some form of automation, to where all I have to do is just type in the script name or have the system run a particular script file, and this just gets handled for me. Remember, these are computers. We want these things to do the work for us. So we don't want to be the sysadmin that does the same thing over and over and over again. We want to be the lazy sysadmin that's already got something set up where things like this get taken care of for us. So let's go ahead and modify this same command that we used earlier by using the echo command. And I'm using the -E option, which is going to specify the ability to interpret / characters in a different manner. And I'm going to show you that here in just a second. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a line that says shebang /bin/bash, which indicates that I'm creating a bash script. Now, if you're new to bash scripting, I highly recommend that you read up on it and practice with it as much as possible, because when it comes to bash scripting and working with commands at the command line within Linux, there is so much overlap within all of the topics, within anything for an LPI exam that you sit down for, that will, something that you may have learned within one topic is going to help you tremendously with the expectations of another topic. So there's a good deal of overlap, but one thing I highly recommend is bash scripting, because creating a script file, knowing how to put some logic within a script file, and the commands that you put within a script file, that covers so many different facets of different topics, that if you have a good understanding of bash scripting, then you're good to go with most of the other topics that involve working at the command line. So right here, I'm going to put in 2 new line characters, which is basically telling this file here that when it gets created, it's essentially the same thing as pressing the enter key twice to give me a blank line between the top line of bin bash and the command that I want to have executed on my system. Now, I'm not going to put a space here because I just want the third line on this file here to be the name, to be the actual command I'm going to run. And again, something else you need to be aware of when it comes to working with bash is that you need to escape some characters. If you noticed over here at the start of this echo command for what I'm going to send to a file, I'm using a double quote, but I also have a double quote right here. So as far as the echo command is concerned, I'm essentially stopping the command at this point right here, because I have a closing double quote for the command. Now, I don't want echo to interpret that as, hey, this is the end of the command, we're done, continue on. So instead, I'm going to escape that double quote, and the same thing for this one here, so that the echo command will include all of this text between this double quote here and this double quote here as a brand new script file for me. Now I'm going to take all of this information here from this command, and I'm going to send it to a brand new script file. And it helps if I actually escape out of this as well. Oops. And reset my IFS. Okay, sorry, apologies here. So I need to tell the echo command to not process that one as well. That is still messing up on me here. Let's see. Funny thing is I had this working earlier, which is pretty awesome. There we go. Okay. All right. So let's take a look here. And there we go. Okay. So all my typos aside, we do actually have our script file that we wanted to create. And oh, I see what the issue is here. We didn't escape the exclamation mark. So let's fix this up real quick.
Kenny, sorry to interrupt. Would you be able to move your screen up a little bit? We're getting buried at the bottom here.
Sure. Yeah, I'll do that for you. All right. So again, this is a good example of what to do when something goes wrong. You also need to know how to use a text editor within Linux, such as VI /Vim or Nano or Pico, things of that nature. So I'm going to use the Vim text editor to modify this file that I just created with my half-assed or terrible command that I just did, and put my exclamation mark in there. All right, here we go. So let's take a look at something here. Now, since this is a script file, and a script file needs to have the execute permission in order to actually run on your system, we need to take a look at the permissions that are on the file now. So again, this is something that you need to understand, is how file and folder permissions work within Linux. The RW means that we have read and write permissions. And in this location here, we have user, group, and world. We don't have the execute bit set, meaning that we can't use this as a script file directly. So I need to actually add that execute bit to this particular script file. And that can be done by changing the mode of the file. By specifying that I want within the user column over here to the left, I'm going to add the execute bit so that we can actually execute this file. And there we go. Now I have the X here, so I can execute this file. So just for grins and giggles, let's go ahead and see if we can run it. All right. And there we go. We have our last 4 CSV file that we wanted to have the command output for us. And there's the information that we needed. So great, we got a script file that handles all these commands for us, or this particular command, command string, if you will. And what we'd like to do is take this one step further. We would like to have the ability for other people to use this particular command. Now, since it sits in my home directory, it's only going to be able to be run by me or the root user of the system. But if we want to make it available globally, then we should understand the file system hierarchy standard, which is another topic that you need to be aware of for an LPIC-1 exam. Now, the file system hierarchy standard states that particular directories can be used for globally installed application programs, as well as globally installed application programs that are that have been installed by a system administrator or like a third-party vendor or things of that nature. Now, I'm going to use the /user local/bin directory. Since I created this file, it's only local to this system. It didn't come from a package. And I'm going to install this script to be in that location so other users can log into the system and run the script as well. But let's take a look here. Now, if we look at the long permissions, which is what I did here with the -L of this directory, specify the -D option of the user local bin directory, we can see that the owner is root and the group is root. Now, I'm not in that group. I have my own special group and my own special user ID. So I can't write to this directory as indicated by this field of permissions here. And just a quick aside, if you're not up to speed on Linux file and folder permissions, I highly recommend that you study those because they come into play within many aspects of a Linux operating system as well as for the exam itself. So I need to use a different utility to temporarily grant me the privilege to copy my script file into this particular directory. So in order to do that, I had to be part of a group of administrators or sudoers that gives me the grants me the temporary permission to write to that other directory. So if you haven't seen the sudo command before, there's something else I highly recommend that you read up on and study on, as well as the vice sudo command. Now, if you're taking notes, I highly recommend that you look at what this will do is to modify the file that the sudo command looks, see who has what permissions to see what a particular user can run and at what systems. The vice sudo command does grant you the ability to file, and it does before you close the file out to make sure there aren't any mishaps, so you don't render sudo completely inept on your system. So I'm going to use the sudo command with the copy command because I want to be able to copy as an elevated user my script file that I just created into this user local bin directory. It's going to ask me for my password because I'm asking the system for elevated privileges. As long as I'm in the sudoers file, this command will work. And there we go. And there's our script file we just had added to the system. So one thing we want to do now is we've granted the ability for everybody else to use a script on the system, but we don't need them to run it on their own all the time. There's something that you can use called scheduling jobs. Now, if you've been with Linux for a long time or Unix of that nature, you know that you have access to utilities such as cron and at. But here recently, within the last few years, we've had something else added to our systems called systemd timers. Now, the cron specification has got a pretty easy to understand format for how you set up a cron job. Same thing with at. It has its own specified way of scheduling jobs to happen in the future or on a recurring basis. Systemd requires a little bit of extra legwork. So before, you could just set up a cron file, put in a line of information about when you want the command to run and the name of the file. And that was it. You were done. Good to go. Systemd requires 2 separate extra files in order to make this happen. And I'm going to show you what those files are. So you're going to need a timer file, which actually specifies when a job is going to run, and a service file that has to have the same name as your timer file that contains information about how that job is going to run. So it's a little bit of extra legwork, but it is something we need to get tested on because with the way systemd is going, it's possible that cron itself could get replaced further down the line in the future. I hear rumblings about it, but it's something we should go ahead and learn how to use now, the systemd utilities. So let's take a look at this first one. And these are the actual directives in this timer file. Basically, you have your description that just describes what the command is going to do. And we have an on calendar event, which specifies what day of the week, right here, what day of the week, the month, the day of the week, would it be like a specific date, like on the 15th or 16th or so forth, or the year, and followed by what time that the job is going to run, as well as telling it that we want the timers.target, which handles all of our timers on our system, to know that this particular timer file exists as well, and to make sure it runs at the next time that all of our timers run. But that's just the first part. Again, we also have to have the service unit file that describes the location of our script that we just created. And that's essentially it. And that when we install this service unit, that it gets brought into service with the rest of our services that run on our computer that you may have installed. So I'm going to copy these files over, and I'm going to use file globbing, just so you know that the file globbing with the star is different than regular expressions using a star. So when you go to CIFID exam, that's something else you need to know, how to do file globbing and how to do regular expressions, and to know the differences between both of them, because there are some characters that are used in both, but they have 2 separate meanings. So just be aware of that. And we're going to copy these over to our etc systemd directory /system. Now, there are 2 locations for where you're going to find your unit files for systemd. You're going to have a live systemd directory, which is where systemd unit files get installed by applications. Like if you go and install a package via RPM or dpackage or things like that, the system is going to put the default files needed for the system in that location. And if you need to specify new files or overrides, then you put these in the etc systemd directory. Again, this is part of understanding the basics and how systemd works. So if systemd is completely new to you, I really do recommend that you get brought up to speed on it, because it's pretty much how things work nowadays within the Linux world when it comes to scheduling jobs, for running services, all sorts of things, including even using remote desktop capabilities. So using file globbing, I'm going to copy these two unit files over to our user, or I'm sorry, not the user, but the etc systemd directory. All right. And once you add any file to the etc systemd directory, you've got to tell systemd that location has changed and that it needs to reload all the files in that location so that systemd is aware of them. In order to do that, we use the system control command from systemd along with the daemon reload. So it's just telling systemd reload everything we have on there. It'll take a moment and then it finishes. And whenever you deal with a systemd timer file, it's just more work that we have to handle here, is we have to enable the timer. Whoops. If I knew how to type, this would be even better. All right. And we see that it created a symlink for our timer so that systemd knows to run it. And we need to go ahead and enable our service file that matches the name of our timer also. All right. So both of those are enabled. Now let's just go ahead and start those up. All right. Now, in order to see what timers you have enabled on your system, you can use the list timers command. And here we go. It shows the timer file that's activated and what file it actually activates, which is the command that's within our service unit here. So what I did there was basically just a quick demo showing you how all of the things that I've shown you are facets of individual topics that you can be expected to be tested on within the LPIC-1 exam. So I covered a pretty wide range there with using text file editors, working with systemd, working with timer units, working with file permissions, directory permissions, how to use sudo, things of that nature. So again, there's a bunch of overlap, but that is the level of types of commands and understanding of your system that you need to have when you sit for the LPIC-1 exam. So continuing on here. All right, so now that you have an understanding of what is expected of the exam, where do you go to take it? So we have paper-based exams that we give at events when we actually have them again, such as Scale, FOSDEM, FrostCon, all these right here, Linux Fest, Ohio Northwest. Now, of course, with the pandemic, we don't really have this going on right now, but I'm going to show you some other methods that you can use to take an exam. So when we were at these live events, you can sit for the exam there at a discounted price, but it is a paper-based exam. So the paper-based exams, it's the same format, the same questions, you just actually write in your answers. The caveat is that it takes longer to grade these. It takes about 4 weeks to get these graded because they have to be handed off to somebody to actually manually go through each individual line. And then you should expect those results within a few weeks after you take the exam. Now, during normal times, we also have the option for taking exams at a test center, such as Pearson VUE. And you can register for an LPI exam with vue.com/LPI. But before you do that, you need to go to the LPI website and get yourself an LPI ID so that VUE knows who's taking what exam. So just to help track that information. Plus the LPI ID is what we use internally for LPI in order to make sure that all your certifications are up to date. It helps track your information for you. And it comes into play later for your membership application if you wish to do that. And I'll show you that in a bit as well. The benefit of taking a computer-based exam is that you get results as soon as you get done taking the exam. So you'll know immediately how well you did, and whether if you have to retake it or if you passed it, and what your next steps are going to be. Now, when you get the results, we don't tell you which question you got wrong. We basically just give you a broad overview of the topic area of where how you score within a topic area. So that way, if you feel like maybe you were lower in scripting, but you did great and working with GPG keys or something like that, then you know that you need to study harder on the scripting element of things in order to when you go to retake it, that you hopefully will score better on the next go around. Here recently, we have started online testing through Pearson VUE. This, of course, was brought on by the pandemic. So you can register for those at home.pearsonvue.com/LPI on VUE, which is their testing platform. Now, the system requirements for that are not awesome. And what I mean by that is OnView requires that you use either a Windows computer or a Mac OS system in order to take the exam. They don't have any online testing if you're taking it from a Linux system as of yet. We spoke with them. They say that they're potentially going to work on something. They're pretty iffy about it. But the good thing is that internally we are working on something to remedy that situation ourselves, and that you'll hear more about that down the road in the future. But in the near future, as it stands now, if you're going to take the exam online, you'll have to take it through OnView using either a Windows system or a Mac system. So at least there is that option if you can't make it to a physical test center to take the exam. So what should you expect during an LPI exam? When if you go to a test center, make sure that you bring an official photo document with you, such as a driver's license, a passport, student ID card, just something that has your picture on it to help prove it's you. And of course, your LPI ID number. Again, you need to have that when you register for the exam, whether you're doing paper-based exam, online testing, or at a test center. You need to make sure you have that LPI ID number either with you or already registered and attached to your exam registration. So during the exam itself, like I said earlier, make sure you read all those questions carefully. There aren't necessarily trick questions, but if you read it too fast, you could trip yourself accidentally by misinterpreting something. So make sure that you read the question very carefully so that you fully understand what it's expecting of you when it comes to an answer. Again, we don't have trick questions, but we do expect exact understanding and accurate knowledge of technical terms. When it comes to multiple choice questions, there's always one correct answer, unless the question explicitly requires more than one. And again, if it says, it'll tell you if it needs 2 correct answers or 3 or whatever the case may be. It will spell that out for you so you don't have to sit there and add to any stress of trying to determine, well, is it 3 answers or 4 answers? What do I need? It'll tell you what you need. For fill in the blank questions, watch out for hints such as expecting file pass, additional options or parameters or not. Again, if it's asking for a parameter or an option, just give it the parameter or the option. Don't go crazy and write the full command out along with the option. Just give it exactly what it's looking for. If you have any uncertainties while you're in the exam, we do our best to ensure that this doesn't happen. Again, like I said, all of our exams go through rigorous review and testing internally and beta testing before it gets out there to the general public. Just make sure you read the questions carefully. Proctors are not allowed to talk about an exam content. Typically, if you go to a test center, the proctors that are there, most of them that's their job, is to be a proctor, and they proctor multiple exams from different vendors. They may not have any idea what Linux is or any of that nature, so they won't be able to help you. Regardless, they can't really speak with you anyway. We do offer, when you go to take the exam, a piece of paper or like a little, like a whiteboard type of item, so you can jot down notes. And when you're done with the exam, you can turn these into the proctor and they'll get that information back to us. We do check for those comments to help improve things. So if you find like a mistake or if you feel like something could be improved upon, go ahead and write it down and turn it into the proctor after you're done with the exam, and we'll take a look at those. Take your time. It's not a race. Don't try to rush through it. If you rush through it, you may miss some very important information about some of those questions. You may make a question harder than what it needs to be, or you may put information in that's not needed. So just make sure that you read those questions carefully. So what happens after the exam? After you take the exam, we'll email you the results. If you sit for the computer exam, you're going to know immediately but you're also going to get an email, usually within a day or two afterward, basically reflecting the same information. If you sit for the paper exam, it takes about 4 weeks before you get those results by email, but we send that information to you. If you pass both exams for LPIC-1, then you get the welcome letter from LPI, a copy of the certificate, and a nice little ID card that shows that you're LPIC-1 certified or LPIC-2, whatever certification exam you sit for. And let's see, the candidate area, when you go to lpi.org, this is where you can view the different exams that you've taken, any certificates. If you lost your paper one and you need to re-download one, you can download a PDF, print off your new one. We highly recommend that you verify that your postal address is correct so that we send out those certificates or information like that to you, that we actually get it to you. And they also offer verification codes for certificates. So if you go to work for an employer and you say that you're an LPIC-1 certified individual, well, they may ask for a verification code so they can check for themselves just to make sure that you are who you say you are, that you do have that certification, and they can verify that for any HR requirements that they may have. Now, recertification. So this kind of goes into what somebody asked about earlier. After 5 years, your LPI certification becomes inactive. You're still classified as certified. It's just your certification itself is inactive. So your certification no longer serves as a base for a higher certification, which means that, say you're LPIC-1, you wait 5 years and your certification becomes inactive, you can't immediately jump in and go for LPIC-2. You need to have some way to have that LPIC-1 reactivated to count for the LPIC-2 exam or the LPIC-2 certification. So in that regards, we recommend that you recertify every 2.5 to 3 years. And what that means is that if you want to go for LPIC-2, then within that time frame, go ahead and try for the LPIC-2. You don't necessarily need to recertify an LPIC-1 again. Just go for a higher level certification if you can, or if you don't need the higher level certification, then you can recertify on the same one again if you need to. A higher level certification extends all your lower level certifications. So if you take an LPIC-1 and you've got the certification for LPIC-1 and it's 4 years, 11 months and 29 days or 30 days before that 5-year mark hits, if you've passed both exams for LPIC-2 within that time frame, then you're good to go for another 5 years. That LPIC-2 extends everything for you for that 5-year period. Same thing goes for LPIC-3. It also extends both your LPIC-1 and your LPIC-2 certification. So that's how that part of it works, but there's something else that you can do to extend your certification as well. And I'll get to that in just a minute. In the event you don't pass, if you sit down for the exam and you just didn't have enough points in quite a few areas, and it just you didn't get the 500 point minimum required in order to pass that exam, take a look at what the test output tells you as far as like the areas that shown lower points, and just take mental note of those. Practice harder on those. Do some more reading. Do some more study. More than anything, practice makes perfect. I can't just practice is just the best way to go about this. Again, like I said, we can't provide you feedback on individual items because that's just an NDA breach, and we just can't do that. But just make sure you practice the topics themselves, that you have a full understanding before you sit down for the exam. The second try is possible 1 week after the first try. So say you sit down for LPIC-1 101 and you don't pass, you take it on a Friday. Well, the next Friday is the soonest that you can go and take that exam again. And if for some reason you don't make it on the second try after that next Friday, then you have to wait 90 days before you can take it again. So there's a 3-month window before you can attempt the same exam again. Now, this isn't meant to be a punishment. It's just we don't want people wasting their money. We just want to make sure that you actually understand the content before you go to pay for an exam, because we understand that exams can be expensive, and we just don't want to keep taking your money. We want you to understand the material as best you can before you sit down for the exam. We just figure that that's showing something in good faith for everybody that sits. So that's going to tie into the next topic, which is membership. So a quick aside, membership is something we just started up this past year. So if you're an LPIC-1 or LPIC-2 or LPIC-3, what have you, as long as you have one of the professional level certifications, then you're eligible to join LPI as a member. And what that gets you is the ability to help shape the board of directors that governs the Linux Professional Institute. So when it comes time for voting at our annual general meeting, and we have one coming up sometime in May is tentatively when it's scheduled, then you can vote for the next board of directors that govern the Linux Professional Institute. Now, that being said, there's two different groups of candidates that run for the board of directors. We have those that they may come in from other businesses, they may come from other backgrounds, and they have different types of professional experiences, and they get selected by our nomination committee to run for a board position. But we also have members, they have the ability to run for board positions themselves. So if you're an LPIC-1 certified individual, you're rather business savvy, you know how to work with board governance and drive large organizations, then you yourself can actually promote yourself to be a candidate, to be a director on the board of directors for LPI, provided that you have the backing of other members. So if you set yourself up a platform, there's something that you would like to help improve for LPI, then you can promote that yourself and then share that information with other LPI members. And if they back it, then you get on the member nominated slot and you can run for one of the chairs for the board of directors. That's not the only benefit, but that's the big main one for members, because we changed how the organization is governed, and it allows more direct involvement from those that are actually certified through LPI to help push the new directions or the future for LPI itself. We also offer discount services from other vendors, such as we offer exam discounts. We offer there are discounts that come in from other vendors, such as Fluent Forever, which is an organization that teaches how to speak other languages. We have training organizations that offer discounts for books, training materials, things like that. So when you become a member, we offer these discounts for you, and there are new discounts that get added each week. So that's something we're keeping an eye on to help make just the overall experience for members to make it more worth their while. We offer free beta exams for new exams that are in development to members to help us test things to see if they meet the standards, if the questions make sense, if it seems actionable, things of that nature. We also have an approved trainer program that we're working on, which is if you're a member and you're also a professional trainer and you go through a certification, it's not really a certification, it's not a separate certificate, but you go through an onboarding process through LPI, then we can promote you as an approved trainer. We can assist you with LPI materials, and other organizations can locate you on the LPI system for trainers that are promoted through us to show that this person has gone through the process. They know how to instruct good quality curriculum. They know how to work within classroom environments, things of that nature, and it helps to promote you to other potential candidates for training programs. You can extend your certification through the submission of PDUs. PDU is a professional development unit. So if you go to conferences, if you attend webinars such as this one, you actually get PDUs that you can submit to the membership program to help extend your certification. So let's say, for instance, that you're an LPIC-1 certified individual and your LPIC-1 runs out in, say, November of this year. You've already signed up for the membership program. You've already paid either the year due or the 3-year due, whichever way you want to go, and you're a member. If you fill in enough PDUs, you need 60 PDUs before your certification goes into the inactive state. Then that extends your certification another year or 3 year, depending on what your membership cycle is set to. So there's more information about that at lpi.org/member. It's just to show that there's other ways of extending your certification. And the main reason behind that is we know Linux changes, but it doesn't change that much over a really long period of time. And we understand that there's certain organizations that all they need is somebody with an LPIC-1. They don't need LPIC-2 or LPIC-3 level people. And if all you have is an LPIC-1, but you don't want to keep taking the same test over and over again because you work with Linux every single day, so you're constantly refreshing yourself anyway, this is a way for you to extend your existing certification beyond that 5-year mark without having to go retake the exam. And all you have to do is just submit PDUs to show that you've taken other classes, you participate in community organizations, you've contributed code to other open source projects, you can send links to your GitHub account. We cover all different types of avenues of approach for PDU submission to show that you are actually out there improving your professional stance, helping improve things within the open source community, and constantly staying abreast of changes within the open source world in order to keep that certification active. There's other stuff that we're working on within the membership program. As more details come about, we will release those within webinars and newsletters, things of that nature. And so as time goes on, we'll have more stuff to offer you. But I know it's a lot of material. It's basically I opened up a fire hose on everybody for what we cover. But if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask us, and we'll see what we can do about helping answer those.
Thanks so much, Kenny. That was great. One question that we had previous, I was just wondering if you can get a little bit more detailed on what LPI is able to do. Can LPI help people and members get jobs in Canada? I know that is very broad, and obviously we can't legally do things, but we can assist in a way.
Yes, that's actually something I should have had as a bullet point on there. For the membership program, yes, we're working on a system right now. It's still in development. We're pretty close to getting this thing knocked out. Is for members, when you become a member, of course, we have the system set up so it shows what certifications that you have, and we have a job board system in there that say if somebody we'll just use Canada for an example here. So let's say somebody within Canada is looking for Canadian LPIC-1 certified individuals. Well, they'll have a posting within our system, our partner system, and members can actually search for those jobs through what we have is called a people portal, which is for the members. You can search for individual jobs. You can search for criteria such as where they're located, if they'll take remote workers, which particular certifications they may hold, and of course what the job requirements are. And you can apply for jobs through this portal based on the criteria that you already meet and what they provide. So yes, that is coming. It's getting pretty close to getting done. So that is something that we offer for the members in the future.
That's great. Thank you. And an attendee, Caesar here, has also added a link into the chat box that you can use while looking for jobs and careers. Thanks, Caesar.
Yes, Caesar, one of our guys out of Brazil. He's one of our savvy guys. He keeps his ear to the ground on open source stuff as well.
Yes, absolutely. Let me just see here. Is there a way LPI assists other individuals outside of Canada to outsource jobs by connecting to potential employers?
Yes, I was just using Canada as an example, but the intent is if you're in Brazil, if you're in Germany, Japan, wherever, we have partners globally. So any one of the partners that we have in any other nation can come to us and say, all right, I need a person with an LPIC-3 and DevOps. They can post a job for that from their respective country within the system. And all you have to do is just go through the partner portal, the people portal after you become a member, and search for whatever available jobs that are out there from a particular country in which level of certifications that they need to hold that position. So yes, it's not just Canada, it's just wherever partner has an open job that they've posted through our system that you can find one.
That's great. Any other questions from anyone? That was a lot of information. And again, we will be sending out a follow-up email to everyone with the slides, with the recording, so you can kind of go through it. I will also attach all the important links that Kenny has brought up as well. Okay, doesn't look like any questions anymore. So
okay.
Thank you again, Kenny, for donating your time and bringing us through that. And thank you for all the attendees for joining us today. We will try to get that email out by the end of the week. If not, it'll be early next week. Any follow-up questions at all, I will have my email available, and I can pass that on as well. So thank you, everyone, again, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.